Well, hello everyone. We are back for Six Elementals interviews. It's 7 p.m. Eastern where I am. It's not where my wonderful guest is. However, I will let her talk about that. But yes, I have the amazing author Anne Smith-Nochasak. She is simply brilliant. I've loved everything
Oh,
she's written. And right now, my wife and I are fighting for reading time with her most recent book, River Faces North. Steph keeps
so
snatching away from me, and then I can't get it back. She hides it on me. So then but it is what I've read so far. It's brilliant. Deb has commented that it is fantastic.
really?
The
Oh,
writing is
thanks, Steph.
superlative.
You're watching the.
Yeah, the writing is superlative. As to be
Aw,
expected from you. But yes, so welcome, and thank you so much for
thank you
joining
very
me.
much for having me and for all that. That's a wonderful welcome.
So maybe we can start out a bit, if you're fine with that, with telling us a bit about yourself, where you're coming from. I'm coming from Barrie, just an hour north of Toronto, and it's around 7 p.m. here. Can you tell us a bit about where you're hailing from?
I'm hailing from rural Nova Scotia, where actually, basically, the environment of the protagonist flow. Only we still have electricity here. I'm in basically the geographical center of nowhere. As I say, when you run out of potholes, that means you've reached our place. And we enjoy country living. And right up till tonight, when I was going to the clothesline and I heard this big blast of gunfire and realized that a deer had come quite close, and somebody just decided to take a chance on it being more than 400 meters. Believe me, it wasn't more than two. But hopefully they got their deer, and we won't have them shooting down there. Or hopefully the deer got away, more likely, but don't kill the hunters. I said that. We're down there, and it's about 8 p.m. Um, Winter is setting in, and we're
Yes.
looking forward to a bit more frost, fewer wood ticks.
Yes, 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 I hear you. Well, Nova Scotia is beautiful. I've
Thank
never
you.
been there. Deb and I want to make that trip at some point, hopefully next year.
That
Um,
would be nice.
but clearly, now just to confirm, did you grow up in Nova Scotia?
Yes, I grew up approximately 17 miles from where I live right now.
Oh wow! So
And
you didn't stray too far at all from home, eh?
actually, I've living here. It takes quite a while. It takes over half an hour to get there because
Ah,
you have to go through. Right now, they're repairing a bridge, which means they put in a Bailey bridge, and now they are putting in the other bridge. And I'm not thinking that they'll be able to finish it before the it gets too cold. I think we're going to be doing the detour for a long time.
oh
We're
well. I
not
hope
going
it's finished sooner than expected for you. So,
to. Don't bet on it. Welcome to
so
Nova Scotia, where the apocalypse has arrived ahead of schedule.
yes, and clearly it has arrived in your recent book. Um,
Yeah.
so Nova Scotia, I mean, it is somewhere that is it's everything I've seen of it. It is fantastic, so scenic, absolutely beautiful. How is not just in the river faces north, but in terms of all your books, how has Nova Scotia and where you've grown up and where you've lived, how has that influenced your writing?
How it's influenced my writing, I think, because although I've traveled, much of my career was spent traveling in northern communities, and I've been very welcome in communities. Like you travel in as a visitor, as a guest, but you're treated like family while you're there. And one thing I know in one community that they were a little surprised was how much most of us from the rural areas, like if there was a death in the community or something like that, we all sort of went racing to the school not to teach but to start cooking because there would be community members coming in from all over being flown in, and the gym would become a cafeteria. And because so many mourners would be immediately involved, us that were external staff would jump right in, and they sort of were not happy with that because it was a sad time, but it was pleasing for the community that so many people would just sort of, from rural Newfoundland or rural Nova Scotia, we just sort of come charging in and where's the pots, where's the pans, where's the bacon, let's start cooking. You might want scrambled eggs. It's the only thing that we can do in my case. But I found that there's a strong sense of belonging. Like when I was leaving for one community, I got a call the night before. They said, "Now, what day are you leaving?" I said, "Well, I'm leaving Sunday." "Oh, good. You'll be able to work the church supper on Saturday night." And, it's just like you might be packing, but you're going to get out there. When you're from a place like this, you have a very strong sense of your roots. You have a very strong sense of where you grew up. And no matter how far you go, wherever you go, this is always going to be home. And the people here will always be the people of home. And you can be away for years and you walk into the local stuff that they're going to think it's me. The dog, she's snorting. They're going to pick up the conversation where you left off last summer. They know you. They've known you since you were born. They know your family, and it just makes you feel rooted. And for the characters in Canoer of Shorelines, they're struggling with this sense of homecoming. They're struggling with trying to find a place. And I found drawing on my own sense of returning to my roots helped me shape that narrative. And for Anna Kane in The Ice Widow, no matter how far she strays in her life, she always returns. She always returns. It's almost like Harry Potter and his protective enchantment. She's got to return to renew her sense of being. And this is where she comes. For Flo, it's where she grew up as well. And ultimately, it's where she settles, not on the home farm. As she says, there are limits to nostalgia and a reason I left home when I was 17, but still her home area is her home area. And when she comes home, this is where she settles. And there's always that sense of no matter where I am, however many years, wherever I've built a house even, this will always be the place that even if I couldn't come physically, it would always be the place that forms home for me. We're not going to play ball. We are. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely wonderful. I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Alicia from Birdie and the Books. Hey, Alicia, thanks so much for coming out and checking out the show. And I was just on a live with Alicia last night. Alicia is wonderful. She's an amazing person. My sister from another mother. We share the same birthday. Check out Alicia's channel. She is absolutely fabulous. Just a warm and wonderful person. And thank you, Alicia, for stopping by to say hello.
Nice to see you or see your name. I can't see you.
So, and this is now your third book, River Faces North. So, and I understand it's going to be part of a continuing series. So, is that correct?
That's the plan. Yes.
So what's made you decide now, after your first two books, which essentially, as far as I can determine, and correct me if I'm wrong, are more standalones? What made you decide to start a series?
I didn't decide to start a series. I decided to write a story about a rebel grandmother. And it was going to be almost like a funny story, like sort of this tough sort of old crone. And Flo is not funny. She is a tough old crone, yeah, but she's not. But the thing is, it's ultimately River's story, her granddaughter's story. River is not a narrator. She doesn't even, she's in the narrative, but it's kind of like in the Gospels, Jesus appears in all of them, but he doesn't actually write them, and he doesn't really have much of a voice in them. River is central to the plot, yet Flo, this is Flo's story of River. And a lot of it is Flo's story of Flo because she's a little bit focused that way. In the second part, River still will not be the narrator because she's going to be too busy. I'm drawing on, again, a bit of a synoptic thing, using the idea of Luke having an observer chronicler who's gathering the stories. I'd love to have Flo continue, but she's okay. This is going to be a different journey, and she's not going to be on it. And much as she would like to be, she has other commitments, shall we say. I'm trying to be mysterious here so people rush out and queue up. But, also, people tell me, we don't have to buy your books. You tell us the whole plot before before we ask a question. So I've decided I want it to go on. Like, the idea would be Flo's story of River, and then I want to know more about how it turned out. So it's going to be 3 parts. Tagak is a word that has 3 aspects. There's north, shadow, and reflection in a mirror. And this one, River faces north, is the first aspect where she is accepting and determining what she's going to do. She becomes shadow, will be the second one, in which she is working out her destiny. Because the shadow, sound like Terry books, the shadow messengers. This is the group that she's going to be working with, learning their ways and surpassing them. And she reflects the earth will be when her grandmother's dream will be finding its fulfillment in the healing of the earth. So, or not. But,
so this is essentially going to be a series of stories connected in the same universe. However, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. However, not necessarily focusing on the same main character.
No, it's going to be each of the stories will be a story of River,
okay,
but told by somebody else from a different time in the journey.
Well, that sounds fascinating.
Well, one thing I have promised people at the markets, because face to face, you want to make sure that you don't mislead people, especially. But I'd like to think that each one is going to come to a conclusion. Like when you write, you don't leave us cliffhanging. You come to sort of a fulfillment in that story. And I want to be like that because I really can't stand these ones. Like I lost with Terry Brooks in the Armageddon Children books. In one, they sort of, they're there at the door of the cave and you don't know if they're going to live or die. And I think he's never done that before. Why did he do this to me? He always gave me a conclusion and now he didn't. I have to wait a year to find out if this Knight of the Word is going to pull through.
So these stories are going to be self-contained, but still set in the same universe. And this universe, I would, my description, and again, for you as the author to tell us, this is set in 2036, so not that far from now.
No.
But the environmental decay is quite severe, and this is a dystopian tale. Yeah. Now, I always wonder when authors write books like this, is this your version of what you believe the future might be? Is this something that you hope won't happen? is this
Yep.
something that, what how do you feel about, you've written this book, so how do you feel about the potentiality of this coming true?
I would say as November gathers around us, yeah, I don't think that this is that fictional anymore. I don't think it's like I've had people say that's not futuristic. You know, we're living like this right now. All we need is a few more bombs dropping, and we'll be right there. The way we're living right now. Um, if I said it in 2036, because my basic feeling was if I left it for farther in the future, it would be too late for the story. It could be, if it does escalate, it can escalate very fast. And not that I'm sure that's going to happen, but I can see the possibilities of it happening. And I can see the possibilities of continuing to hope, as Flo does, that the revolution will succeed and the not too bright elect will be done away with. I'm not sure I have her confidence, though.
Well, it's
Perhaps I'm,
funny, Flo is, she's in her late 70s, almost her 80s,
yeah,
and she's a very heroic character for
yeah.
many reasons. She has wisdom, she has knowledge, she has, a fire, and of course a keen desire to protect, her granddaughter and her family. Um, but what I loved about this book so far too is that you rarely find books written, with a hero or heroine that is that age. And I loved reading it. That was one of the reasons I loved reading it, just again for the wisdom and the perspective. Was that important for you to put that in that, from the perspective of someone of that age?
Well, yes, because in about 10 years' time, when the story unfolds, that's about the age that I myself will be. And I would like to think that Flo's kind of, if the world were coming to an end 10 years from now, Flo was the person I would aspire to be. She's tough, she's resilient. And when I couldn't figure out, okay, what would Flo do here? I mentioned this with Taylor the other time. I just sort of project myself into this aunt of mine that was the most wonderful, warm-hearted, beautiful battle axe that you ever wanted to meet. But I think, okay, what would Aunt Isla do? And now I know what Flo would do, because she kind of is my guiding light in that.
Yeah, it was wonderful to hear her voice, her inner monologues. I think, and through her see, and again, as I said, I've never been to Nova Scotia, but experience it through her eyes. The beauty of it, and also there is much in this story that has to do with, of course, being Canada. Well, this is a very prominent part of our culture. Indigenous issues and Indigenous culture and Indigenous perspective, and in a lot of ways.
She has that from her experiences, but you must remember she states right out, because the editor and I wanted to make that very clear. We didn't want to do something misrepresentational, that she's of English and French heritage, and that possibly there's some Mi'kmaq blood in the family, but the family has never agreed on that. Her husband was Inuit, and her son and his partner are of Indigenous extraction, as therefore is her granddaughter. At one point, she describes herself as the last white ancestor standing, because she is really. And she does have, though, I think respect and a love, having so many, being surrounded so much by the Indigenous experience. She has learned a lot from that and has taken on, not that she has become Indigenous or anything, but she has come to appreciate the worldview. And
So,
she her dreams to her are something that are very real, and that is a very strong component in Indigenous thought. But one of the first things somebody asked me, they said, "Well, do you dream?" Well, don't we all? He said, "No, but do you dream? Like, do you have dreams that are more than dreams?" Like Flo's husband has when he's visited and dreamed by his little brother, who releases him from his past. And I mean that actually is a dream that happened. Somebody told me that dream one time, but actually they told it on Facebook, so it was not secret or anything. It was a public forum on Facebook. But these, I think, from her experiences and from her travels, she's come to embrace much of the thinking of her husband's people, now her son's people, and also her daughter's, her beautiful daughter, her daughter-in-law's family. She's learned from that.
and
And
how has for you, growing up in Nova Scotia, growing up where you are, how has Indigenous culture shaped your writing, shaped your influences in terms of what you
I
write?
think that having family and friends who are Indigenous, like my son is Indigenous, his partner's Indigenous, my former husband is, well, now deceased, was Indigenous. Many of my friends, Indigenous, past and present. Many of them are gone. But I think some of the things, like, especially in the Ice Widow, an elder who lived a couple of streets over and was a good friend of ours, my son met her, and then started, her grandkids and him started hanging out together, and we all became friends. But she was a remarkable woman who was a residential school survivor from the notorious St. Anne's, up around Fort Albany. And she was there like from the age of 8 to the age of 10. And some of the things that she bore witness to as an 8-year-old child, no 8-year-old child should ever bear witness to. The stories that people tell you, and they're so gentle when they tell them. They're not angry or saying, you've got to listen to this because look what happened. They just tell the story. And there is a profound humility in their telling. And it stays with you, what you've heard, what you've learned from those stories. It's just not something you can put down, put away.
Yes, no, I would agree. And of course, having read my books and you've read Lord and King, you know that there was essentially a homage to what our Indigenous Canadians have suffered in terms of the residential school system and the horrific
Yep.
genocide that occurred because of that system.
And
And
that was sensitively done. I really appreciated reading that because there is such, it's become almost exploited in the media, and in some cases. In that case, there was a humility in the way you approach the subject, the way
well,
you
thank
drew
you.
forth the pain and the shame that Uthran felt on learning what had been happening, and the realization just and how the children were presented. It was moving. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I want to say that you very much sensibly and adroitly approach indigenous, issues in all of your. They're woven. The tapestry's woven throughout all your books that I've read so far.
I've got
And
family that won't like it if I do it bad. So
yes, of course. I want to share a quick shout out to the wonderful Elizabeth Tabler, my boss at Before We Go blog, leader Before We Go blog, and at Grimdark Magazine, one of the best people there in the community. How are you doing? Beth, thanks so much for stopping by to say hello. Beth is amazing. Follow her on all her socials. Check out Before I Go blog. It's such a wonderful, warm group of people. And, we're all zany and a bit quirky and a bit odd and a bit, of everything, but just wonderful. And we have the best leader in Beth. And, and of course, Grimdark Magazine is certainly an impactful and influential publication that, anyone who's interested in that genre, that milieu, that subgenre should be checking it out. And Beth plays a very important role there. So thanks, Beth, for stopping by to say hello. Now, I want to get into quickly, and more in your words. Again, this is your third novel, and you've had quite a bit of success in terms of acclaim. Canoer of Shorelines, recognized as one of Miriam Rasheed's best fiction of 2021. The Ice Widow shortlist for Whistler Independent Book Awards in 2023. Semi-finalist North Street Book Prize competition. Just how are you feeling about all the success, all the positive, recognition you've gotten so far with your books? Congratulations, by the way, of course.
Thank you very much for that. But when I flip open on the social media, there's always somebody that was like a finalist or a winner. I'm always a bridesmaid, never a bride, But so I look at these, and part of me thinks, oh, look, but then they get those for a reason, The people that win for a reason. Their work, like I received at the end of the Whistler, you receive an evaluation. If you don't place at all, or if you're not shortlisted, you get just a standard evaluation. If I think you've ever been shortlisted, I think they hone in and they get very, very demanding in their review. Like, you have to have a very good sense of self-esteem to read that review and not cry. It's brutal, but at the same time, it can be okay. I'll start differently the next time. I'll do this, I'll do that. But some things, are kind of picky, like don't start your table of contents on the left side. Well, I'm a maritimer, we're trying to save paper. And then, things like that. But there are literary things that you can use to take you to the next level. Like basically that's like throwing down the glove. They're saying, okay, you want to go into these competitions. This is why you're not winning. And that's harsh, but knowing it can help you move on. Where we say that, but we feel just awful for months.
At the same time, just the getting there is an accomplishment, and it's an accomplishment.
It does feel exciting at the time, yes. And people often assume that these things translate into sales. Not so. In my case, anyway. Maybe it does with other people. Please, if it does, they don't tell me, because otherwise I'll be more depressed. But sales, abysmal might be a way to describe the sales. Face-to-face, Canoer sells. Like when I go out to a market or something, it's Canoer of Shorelines that, people are going to buy. But it doesn't sell online. I have no idea what's going to happen with this one, but we'll just take it one day at a time. But these things are, they are exciting on one level, but at the same time, they're not definitive. Because one must also remember that personal preference can always enter into how a book is received. Like perhaps the screener that got your book just didn't like it. Or maybe the screener that got your book said, "Oh, I love this story. I'm going to put it on the pass it on." And then when the adjudication committee gets it, they feel quite differently, perhaps. So it can be not necessarily definitive.
But still, in saying all that, and you talked about sales. Sales aren't definitive necessarily of
No,
how good a book is either, right? Nothing is truly definitive, and it takes a lot to sell books, a lot of marketing, probably bigger than anything else, marketing. How your book is promoted, and there's a lot of fantastic books out there that haven't sold a lot of copies, and there's a lot of books that are critically acclaimed that don't sell.
I bet you probably no, what's the one I'm thinking of? Wuthering Heights.
Yes.
Sort of when self-publishing was just the high priestess of the self-publishing movement there, the Brontes. But I mean, that was a very grim and dark story, and it's not something that people are going to be rushing out to buy one another for Christmas or something like that. Yeah. But it's a book that will be with us forever because it is a great book. Yeah. But I don't think it will. It will never. What was it that Eve said when you interviewed her? To be a blockbuster, or to be made into a blockbuster movie, or to be on the New York Times bestseller list, maybe that's not in the cards for all of us. I really enjoyed that because that sums it up. I don't think any of us would be disappointed if those things happen, but
that's not what we write. And no. Beth brings up an excellent point. She said the self-published fantasy blog off SPFBO, which Beth has been involved with for many years as a blogger, is very much like this, in that there's books that are fabulous but don't advance through the competition. It's dozens of books, and only 10 make it to the finals, and there's only one finalist. Sorry, one winner. And I think when we look at these competitions and we look at things like sales, we look at all the components of what people judge as success, quote unquote, success as a writer. I think for you and I think, and most writers, the ultimate success is how you feel about your work and yes. how you feel about staying true to your craft, how you feel about, did I write the best book I could have written in terms of what I put out there? But while I still congratulate you again for all of the award nominations and finalists, et cetera, how do you feel about your craft? How do you feel now 3 books in? You've got this book. The reviews I've seen are fantastic so far. What I've read is fabulous. How do you feel about your craft at this stage in your career? Now your 3rd book in. How do you feel about where you are with your writing?
I want to, more than anything, stay true to my what initially made me want to write. I want to tell the story. I want to tell the story, tell my story the best way I can. And if I do that, that's my goal. Like the country song, it says, to leave this old world with a satisfied mind. It's kind of like that. I want to make sure that my story is satisfying. And if I'm doing writing with the kids, like that's the main thing. Okay, do you like your story? Are you pleased with your story? Can you think of a way to make your story stronger? Okay, not, oh, do you think this is worth an A? But, how is your story? How do you feel about your story? And I find it can be quite humbling. I was in one school as a substitute, and the kids had writing. I said, this is great. I love to do it. Like I was just covering that period. We were rotating sub, and this period I had the grade sixes for writing. I said, great. I said, I love writing. Did you? I've written a book. I've written two books, and they said, would you like to write with us? Like, okay, you can join us. Yep, you're good enough to. It was like, not, oh, you're an author, but yeah, would you like to write with us? Because, we're writing, and obviously you like writing, join in. To them, it was something they did because it delighted them. And you say, tell me about your villain, tell me about your main character, and you see their eyes start to shine when they're telling it. This is why we write, to be storytellers, like these kids that are just simply excited about it. And for me, like someone said, if flow had been this way or flow had been that way, the thing is, flow here. Flow can only be flow. And she has, in this book, she is flow. She does not succumb to commercialism, shall we say. She remains true to herself. And I think that, to me, if I start saying, how am I going to, like, I would love to, like we all dream, I'm sure we would not mind being a bestseller or a blockbuster movie or any of that stuff. I did get a nice scammer actually called saying they wanted to turn you read a Canoer of Shorelines, they wanted to turn it into an action movie. Oh, that's nice. Why? We picture the canoe going so fast in the water, and okay, good. You need a different book. Um,
Oh, that's hilarious.
but that's a lot. But I think that if I stop feeling the story, if the story is something that I'm doing, because if I write this part, if I write this, like if Flo has a torrid affair with somebody, will it sell more books? Oh, but it could be in her wild youth, I guess. But I think that it's like somebody said, I hope that you sell out. They mean let you sell out all your books. And I remember replying to that one time, I hope I never do, because that to me is to sell out, simply to write. You're writing for your audience, yes. You're writing to your audience, but you're not sucking up to your audience, if that makes any sense.
No, it totally does. You're keeping integrity in terms of your vision for your work, and you're not you're not tone deaf to feedback and input. However, you're the author, and you're going to write your book a certain way, and any changes you make because of feedback, because you see fit to make those changes, not because you feel any particular pressure to be more commercial.
Yeah. Like some of the changes that I went over with my recent press editor involved, clarifying Flo's cultural identity, because she's so immersed often in the indigenous communities that she's lived in, that was pointed out, it's very easy to make the assumption that she herself is indigenous. And you can't go around making those claims. I mean, there is a movement afoot, that people will want to buy the book then, but it has to be authentically done by somebody who can authentically do that. So I find in that case, we didn't change the plot or anything. We just threw in some clarifications to tune it, to make it more clear. And that's different, but it's really But to write, to say, okay, if I wrote my book like this, if I put more of this in it or more of that in it, it would appeal to more people. Like Flo is writing to one person. And if that's all that it takes, really, one person to receive your story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your books, of course, share a commonality of the fact simply that you wrote it. There are some common elements and themes, I think, and threads that run through them. But can you describe quickly? I just want to go through your three books, kind of give them their own separate and distinct kind of uh, descriptions from you. So, can you tell us what your first book was about? So, your first book being The Ice Widow. Can you tell us what that book is all about?
Okay, actually, The Ice Widow was my second one. That one is the story of really, I've invented a new genre. It's the metaphysical romance because it explores the nature of love more than anything. Anna falls passionately in love in a culture that she does not really understand. She sees her love as defining everything, and it doesn't. And it takes her a lifetime of learning to come to an understanding that love can mean sacrifice for your loved one, even if you get nothing in return. You don't make sacrifices and do things for the people you love so they'll love you better. You do them because love demands that you do these things. Like Jesus does not take on his crucifixion. I'm not preaching here, I'm just using it as a literary analogy. Does not take on his crucifixion because it will make us love him more. He does it because he loves us. Okay.
Yes, and I apologize. Yes, so my that was my error that regarding your
Oh,
which was your
it's
first
pretty.
book
I
with
mean, you read a lot of books. You cannot be expected to keep everybody's books. Yours are easier to keep in order because we have the book one, book two, and we can, they're numbered, and it helps. But Canoer of Shorelines was my first, and that is a story of homecoming and coming to terms with family and finding one's place in the world. You have Julie and Rachel, who both have not a bad relationship with their family, but they don't. There's a lot of not understanding, not misunderstanding so much as lack of understanding, and in the end, coming to an acceptance that really transcends understanding. You might not understand everything they did or why they did it, but you come to an acceptance of them anyway. And in doing so, come to an acceptance of yourself. And one of the most beautiful things I heard was someone I went to school with. She said it was a love story. And I said, okay, how did you see it? She said she learned to love herself. And that, yes, that's exactly it, what she said.
wow, that is incredible. And finally, this book. How would you describe A River Faces North? What is it about?
This is a story of what one person is prepared to do in the face of extreme adversity, regardless of cost to self, what she is prepared to do for family and for the earth. I have faced down hell, she says at one point. She will do anything to preserve her family, to save them. And at one point, she's afraid that she will be under the questioning. And she said, I know in my heart I will never betray them, but will I be strong enough when it begins? will I be strong enough to withstand? And she's prepared to die rather than betray. She's prepared to kill rather than allow betrayal. She's prepared to deal with her sacrifice. She's prepared to deal with profound grief and pain because she cares first about, well, in this case, River. They will
Wow.
never have her. So she hopes.
What are some of the influences in the books that have propelled you towards, being an author? What are some of the books that you've read throughout your life that, have inspired you to write and to write the kind of books that you write? If there's an
I
inspiration from outside sources, from other books or authors.
Somebody asked me this once and went completely blank. But I would say the first book when I read The Stone Angel by Margaret Lawrence, I began to dream of being a writer someday, and that I read back in college. So, and here I am living my dream. But reading her Manawaka books, the first one I read was The Stone Angel. I also find when I read Thomas King and just his whole way of presenting, his whole vision of story and what it means, and the idea that be careful what stories you release, because when a story is given into the world, it can never be recalled. I find I like him. David Adams Richards of New Brunswick, actually, I found his books powerful, but one that has really, really shaped, I think, a number of us from the Maritimes, although he transcends to the universal, is Ernest Buckler. Was it The Mountain? I can't even think of the name. The Mountain and the Valley was, when I read that, that was another book. And again, I read that back in college days. But books like that, you just never forget. And even teaching, like from Oxbells and Fireflies in later years in junior high and high school, those books stay with you. Don't you agree?
Well, I know that your books have certainly resonated with me and stayed with me. So those are
Thank you for
great
that.
influences.
And I'm actually looking quite forward to reading more of Austin. His life is he's learning. His life is getting very complicated. And I have no idea what direction he's going to take because he seems to be doing so well. And then all of a sudden you see, okay, he still has that same rigidity of view that he had in his youth. So I'm wondering, what direction but isn't he so human, Shay? Yes. Shay's a big fan.
Well, thank you so much. I'm
Yeah,
honored that you feel that way.
He's he's so damned human, what his outlook and all of that. You think, okay, he's becoming progressive, and then you say, oh, but he's not. He is and he isn't. And it's like us, like we seem to be progressing, and then somehow we still carry the same preconceptions that have always shaped us. And that's just part of the human experience.
Yes, it is, and I thank you so much for the praise. And your characters are exceptionally well drawn. Every single character I've read from you has been phenomenal. Who's your favorite of all the characters in your books? Who's your favorite?
Oh,
from your books that you've written.
The one who inspires me the most is Meredith Flora Hardy. The one who haunts me the most is Mati in The Ice Widow. She is like, she is a composite of so many people. There are so many Matis in the world of all ages and cultures, but they are there. Just like Tina in, what was my first book called again? A Canoer of Shorelines. Yes, sorry. I blame it on the falling on my head. In Canoer of Shorelines, the character of Tina, these sort of little characters that, and I had an educator actually speak up on both how these are the characters that haunted him. Like basically he too had met them at some point, at any point in his career.
What goes into crafting a great character for you? What goes into making a character stand out for you?
I kind of think about what was their life like. Like I write about them first. Like I wrote several things like not story, but just okay. This is the type. These are some of like Flo's preconceptions, and these are the things that she likes, and these are the things that bother her, and these are some of the worries that she's had, and blah blah blah. And you just sort of really live with your character, and you don't so much say what would she be like, but okay, what are some of the things that she does, and what does that teach me about her? And it's like the character of Doug, somebody how he must have given you nightmares in that was in Canoer of Shoreline. And in fact, from the Miramichi reader, I remember getting a 3-letter message. I hate Doug. And oh, they're going to hate the book. But no, it was just that they found him to be a very unsympathetic character. They didn't hate the book, but they did hate Doug. But that's a good thing because Doug is pretty hateful. But what I found was having to put myself, what would Doug do in this situation? And oh no, this is what he would do. And you've got to write that because you've got to write what is real to that character. Like I can't have Flo go off and perhaps build a windmill or something because it's just something I can't see her doing. There are certain things, well, that's an extreme example, but you have to sort of try to picture your character doing this. And if it seems impossible and stupid, then probably it's something you don't want to put in the book. It has to be, you spend time just, when I'm walking with Shay now, I used to walk with all of them, but now I'm just me and Shay. I'll be thinking about the character, not what is the character what's the scene in the book going to be, but you're thinking about the character. What would they be doing on this walk? What would they saying? How would they feel when Shay starts pulling at the leash? When Shay's jumping in the air, barking at a jet? What are they thinking? What are they saying? And not that those things are ever going to happen in the novel, but it helps you be with your character. I know it's making sense.
Do you believe that you're more of a character-driven reader and writer, or a plot-driven reader and writer?
I think that I'm more on the character side because my plots don't exactly hover in the balance. They're not page turners. Yes, they're not. You don't have to just keep whipping through the pages to see what's going to happen. You can put it aside for a month or two. But I think the characters are what do it for me.
And of course, you can have both. You can have a great plot and great characters. I just find that in my reading experience so far, some books, when you look at some of the major elements of books tend to lean towards one or the other, at least for me, from what
I
I've
think
seen.
for me, I lean towards character, and I think that's the way I write too. Like I like a book that's exciting. I mean, obviously I do. I read, but your books also, they have incredible action scenes, but at the same time, it's the characters like Lizzie and all of these. It's those characters that really hold me,
Oh, well, thank
trying
you
to
so much.
understand them, see them evolve, see them develop. And I find, when I'm reading or if I'm writing, I think character is what's the stronger thing for me.
Yeah. And, it's funny because for as long as I'm reading and now for the short time that I'm writing, and hopefully, God willing, get to write for quite a long time, I found that, the more I write, you get a certain, in some ways, a confidence, and in some ways, you still realize how far you have to go in terms of your craft and evolving your craft to be the kind of writer you want to be. But you definitely start developing what I think is an authorial voice, and I certainly see that with you,
Oh,
with your writing, that it's certainly becoming a very strong and very distinctive and fantastic authorial voice. When you do you think there's a point where you will feel that way with everything you write? I know for me, I'm on book 5. I'm starting to feel that I'm finding that traction where I still have so far to go to where I want to be in terms of my craft, but I feel I'm ready with a certain voice now. If I
yeah.
read my books and I read the consistency now that I think I'm achieving slowly. Uh, I think I'm slowly achieving that. Do you feel that way about your writing?
I think it's starting to come. Like I've been kind of worried about book 2, not only because I fell on my head and I haven't been able to concentrate for very long, and with working, I find when I sit down at the computer, I can't concentrate. I just don't. So I write very little at a time, but I pulled out what I had done so far on this one because I was thinking, okay, this is not going to be flow. It's going to be a different narrator. It's going to be really, really. And I read it over and I thought, it's still, it still has, it's not a weak voice. It doesn't suck. It's got a long ways to go. It has to be a lot of work ahead, but it does have not the same voice as Flo because she is totally unique, but it has a voice that is recognizing, I guess, the same values in a way. But it sounds like it doesn't seem disjointed and just. I know I'm sounding disjointed and distracted right now myself, but when I read it over today, it gave me hope because there was a feeling that there is a voice there, and it is the voice that I've been hearing in the series. It's not like I'm simply okay. And then the dam burst. What was the Scarlet Pimpernel going to do that didn't, you know? And Daffy Duck, but I feel like it is starting to that is starting to come. Yeah, like I recognize it did sound like I wanted it to sound, but it's got a lot of work to go.
Yeah, but I mean, that's part of the process. We're all striving for continuous improvement. We're all striving to get to this mythical. I don't think you ever arrive, but it's all about the struggle and the striving. And I think the endeavor is worth it. That's the one thing I realize now into my 5th book. As much as those times when you want to go, oh my gosh, but the struggle is worth it. The
Yes.
journey is fantastic, and it's filled and it's fraught with all these issues, but it's also joyous, right? And
It is. And going to getting out to like readings and workshops, just getting out to book fairs and meeting other authors, like meeting A.M. Winnie this summer. We've met face to face, eh? I mean, we met on your show, yes, but I mean, we've now, worked a table together, for gosh sakes, here in Moncton. Um, but to attend Booktoberfest in Halifax this fall, like, and meet other people, and you discover what a kind community. Like, I was sort of just stumbling into gear. River had just arrived like 2 days before, and it's sort of like, here, book, me write this, you read. I was very awkward in my flow, and the author next to me, we were sharing a table. He just stepped forward and picked up the book. He said, "This is dystopian, but the thing that I'm catching in it is a strong sense of hope." I thought, why can't I? And he did that for me. He just came in and, stepped into my call flow and didn't usurp it or anything, but just brought me relief and explained my book to people, and sort of gave me a sense of direction. And it's an incredibly kind community out there. And I'm sure there are those that will stab one in the back. Yes, that's in every profession. But I found it to be like, it's like a carnival when you go to one of these festivals, like the one you went to in Edinburgh. Oh my gosh, like all the people you were, oh wow, that must have been amazing. But you're meeting people continually and touching shoulders with people who are established and who do know. And like having there's an author, well, he's from Nova Scotia. His book just came out, Grow Up, Rory Rafferty. It's set in 1979 Toronto, the coming of age and coming out of a young man. And it's about to be launched. It's just come out on Amazon. And he popped in at the Halifax market when I was there one day just to say hi and get my book and, you know, give encouragement. And, like those things are important. Like, we won't be like Eve was saying. I hope Eve listens to this and know that I'm borrowing her phrases with the blockbuster movie but we're not going to be those things perhaps. And if we are, well, that's nice, but we're probably not. But having that community, this community, like you doing what you do, these things are important.
yes, and of course, referring to the wonderful Eve, a Koji's Latvian writer, wonderful, amazing person in the community. I had the privilege of interviewing her as well, and she's just a bright light, a shining star. Yes, and I think the longer I stay a writer and the longer I'm involved in this community, I realize just what a blessing it is. And it is a blessing to know people such as yourself, such as Eve, such as AM. There's such a plethora of authors and booktubers and people in the community that are just phenomenal. And it draws me in. And the more I'm involved, the more I want to give back. And it's funny with my channel, I realized the one thing that really, really gets me going is doing these interviews, these one-on-one interviews. And they don't get the most views and the most clicks, but that's not what it's about. It's about giving back and giving people an opportunity to see these brilliant authors who you may or may not have heard of or read their books.
Well,
And if
some of us could never do this. I mean, some of us are kind of technologically, you know how I am with Twitter, like I'll disappear. Like I actually, when River first came out, I sort of scissor kicked over a fence and wound up in the emerge with a possible skull fracture. But
so
during that
sorry.
time, like I had like chalked up, like Ivy Logan had read the book and reviewed it, and are you all right? Where are you? Like, I haven't heard from you, and things like that. And Kelly Miller was reposting things that were happening on Amazon with River, and because obviously Anne wasn't doing those things, but because for several days I could not even face a screen. But you realize, like, like an AM, she said, I'll keep promoting for you, I'll keep, reposting and promoting, and people were doing incredibly kind things, and but that's like what you guys do. Like, it's just so it makes a community.
Well, I think it's a testament to how beloved you are that people are willing to do that for you, not just a testament to how great they are. And I think,
Well, it's
um,
just the bond that we all have, I think, and that we all share in it.
yeah, I am so enthused and excited to continue to read your book and to finish it. I'm so
Where are you
enthused.
at now? I'm just curious.
I'm really stages because, like I said, again, Deb and I are toggling back and forth. I'm only on page 46, so but
Oh, they
um,
haven't gotten to Caledonia yet.
no.
Okay, they're just starting the stories. Yeah.
So but like I said, your writing, your prose is phenomenal. I'm a sucker for prose, and I'm a sucker for a really well written story. And you know, now those are some of the elements that I can't stay away from with the book. And your books always get that for me. I only have one complaint about your books, that they're only so big. So
Hmm.
and it's not a criticism, obviously. It's just because I want more. So, but yes, I absolutely love your books, and I look forward to reading everything that you write. I'm very honored that you're willing to be one of the cover endorsement people for my next book, for
Oh, I'm
A Pack
excited
of
about
Wolves.
that because that one I'm really looking for. Like, I've enjoyed them all, but this one I am seriously extra looking forward to because I can't right now. I'm starting to jumble, but the King of the Wolf ones, and all
Sure.
of them, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
they are they fascinate me. I just
Yeah.
can't wait to see how this is going to play out because I know it's going to be. And the other son, I'm very interested in seeing how this plays out.
Yeah. Hopefully, you'll be getting in your hands at some point in the next month or so, and probably less. But
I will clear my schedule. I'll
again,
phone the board and tell them I'm not coming in. I'll be sitting home reading till it's done.
but again, I'm very honored that you'd be willing to do that.
I
But
am happy to.
point being, it's because I respect you so much as a person and author, and that is,
Thanks.
and that's because again, you are amazing.
Well, if I didn't
Um,
like your books, I wouldn't agree to it, would I? No.
no, I appreciate that. I appreciate
Mm.
that. And when we talk about our community and all the positive things, and unfortunately there's a downside to social media. We're all aware of it, and sometimes I felt sometimes we live in a little bubble where that's insulated from a lot of the other things, but we can see on the periphery that it is out there, especially on Twitter. um, you know
Yes.
we but at the same time, we do live in a world where almost instantaneously you hear about what's going on in the world around you, right? Whether the information is accurate or not, you're aware of all the newest upcoming authors. They're at a click of a button. You can go on Goodreads, and Goodreads will sort out books that you may be interested for you, right? Because of all the
Yeah.
algorithms. That's how these things are driven. um, have you seen any authors that you haven't got to the books yet that you're really, because you've seen them advertised, or maybe they're a fellow Freezing Press author? Freezing Press, of course, the publishing assist company that we both write for, right? Publishes our books. Something that a friend has recommended. What's out there that's really intriguing you that you want to read next?
Well, right now, I know that Bruce Bishop has been promoting his upcoming book there. And well, my copy should be here on Monday. And I'm really excited about that. But I do tend to pick up ebooks more. Like Eve Cogus had reviewed one recently, the cafe at Kate's, and I know it was a second book, but in the series, but you could still pick it up and enjoy it. And so I actually just whipped it out through an ebook and got it that way. And because that way I have finite space in this little house, and I've sort of papered the walls already with books. If I had all the books that I left behind from Ontario and points north, I would not need to insulate the house. I'd be able to, but I have thousands of books strewn across Canada that I'll never see again. People say, why don't you have any money in your retirement? Because I bought this, and you never recoup your investment on that. But when I was working, like I literally have thousands of books. So I don't know. But another one that what is the one well, I keep watching for like upcoming books and all of that, like watching progress. Like Ivy Logan has one coming out in December, which I'm really looking forward to. It's going to be quite a different process for her. It's not going to be fantasy. It's going to be a standalone, and it's going to be very grounded in but even her fantasy is grounded in a very realistic setting. And this is going to be, though, completely real. So it'll be different, but I'm really looking forward to reading it. And it's like people don't seem to be, like when you read Eve's work, you read Neglected Marriage, and then you read The Accidental Cop. Wow.
Yeah. What a
That's
difference.
one very strong story. That one. They all are, but that one, it really just jumped at me when I read it.
He's a brilliant writer, so yeah.
But I find I sort of have been reading a lot more by independent authors than I have. Like I do have a traditionally published book that I'm reading now, like Elizabeth Strout. I do like to keep up with that, and her new book, Tell Me Everything. I'm reading that one right now, and I didn't see it online. Actually, just somebody happened to drop me an email saying how much they enjoyed it. But I do find that I am reading a lot more independent authors and discovering that, there's a lot of really strong writing out there, a lot of really good writing.
Yes,
Like
there
they
is.
say, oh, like somebody said to me, oh, I didn't realize you were self-published. Oh, I understood that you were published, but you're self-published. I said, it was like they found me working weekends in a brothel or something, like, it's not like that anymore because even traditional publishing houses like Goose Lane, they have a self-publishing channel.
Yeah.
You can go through their self-publishing and channel right there in New Brunswick and self-publish through them. They're a traditional publisher, but they have a self-publishing channel. And I
Yeah.
think we're going to see a lot more of that
Yeah, I
because
agree.
not all of us are gifted in the way of creating and uploading and designing and editing. And, I need help, and I tend to look for somebody I can hire that can help me.
Yeah, no, and there's nothing wrong with that. Most independent writers, to some degree, outsource parts of their work, if it's only just the cover, perhaps, or up to including, uploading, their books on Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. So, however you publish, I think whether traditionally, hybrid, self-published, everything in between, it's all about getting your book out there. That's the
Yeah.
main thing, is being published and getting your work out there and getting in the hands of people who would love it potentially. So.
Yeah. And I think some of like myself, I need the help. Like I admire people that can do this completely on their own. There's a very pronounced skill set in there, but I don't really have the tech or the time or the capability, shall we say. I like having somebody like, say, somebody like Frasens that I can rely on for advice, even.
Yeah, and sometimes you just don't have the inclination, you know. I mean, part of the reasons a lot of people would never be anything other than traditionally published is they don't want to deal with all that. They want someone else to take care of that for them. So, you know, there are definitely some advantages to having a team together that
Yeah.
can, you know, help you put your book together. And more as I continue to publish, I see that advantage, and I'm quite happy with it. So I'm glad you are too. So.
Yeah. And people that are traditionally published who are honest about it will tell, like, there is one who's a librarian. She said, you will find that even if you have a publisher, you will be working very hard if you want your book to get anywhere. You will be out there doing a lot of things. And I know there is one that has not forgotten their indie roots, but they're going to be coming to the markets in Halifax at Christmas to be presenting their books there, simply because they are traditionally published now, but they haven't lost their indie roots.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And that's important. So,
Yeah.
um, well, I mean, this has been such an amazing conversation. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know it's getting late,
My
and
pleasure.
you've been so generous with it. I love chatting to
You
you. We could
have
chat
to.
for
I mean,
hours.
God, I could, people will, but no, people from home, if they're listening, will tell you if you get me on the phone, you're never going to get me off. So you're lucky to get off this time.
Oh, I could chat with you for hours and hours, but I do want to respect your time, and you know, but I just want to say, loving the new book, River
Thank
Faces
you.
North, fabulous. Check out all of Anne's books, including her other two, which are available everywhere. But I want to give you a chance, just as we're signing off, to tell people where can they find you on social media, where can they interact with you, where can they buy your
I have to
books.
plug in really fast.
Absolutely, no, absolutely.
It pulled
Um,
out here.
That's okay. That happens. Technical issues always happen at some point. So,
It always happens at the worst possible time. Now I'll probably short circuit right out of here. Here we go. Judging from the way it shook, the batteries. Okay, what was the question again? Social media?
yep. Social media. Where can people buy your books? You know, where can they find you, interact
Um,
with you if they wish to?
on social media, I'm on X, that was called, what was it called, Twitter in the olden days, um, and on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's at Smith-Nochasak, one word, Smith-Nochasak. So I'm the same on all three. I think on Twitter, on Instagram, it's in lowercase, but it doesn't really make a difference. It's just the way that it turned out on Instagram, and I couldn't figure out how to change it. I have a website, a Canoer of Shorelines.com, and that has the purchase links on Amazon and chapters and all of that. All of my books, they are available on. Canoer of Shorelines is getting harder to find on Amazon, but the e-books are all on Amazon and chapters, Google, and all those typical ones. But the links are there for the physical copies for Amazon and chapters as well. And Barnes and Noble, I think. I don't think Barnes and Noble is carrying the older books right now, just the e-books. But I have the links there. And some people I've had today actually a request through the Ask the Author on my website asking if I would mail the books to them. And I do that in Canada, as you know. And
That's fantastic.
And I think
Well,
that's about it. Oh, and there are a few on my website. It tells what local bookstores have them.
yes.
There's one. There's a page, Maritime Connections 2024, that tells like what markets I'm going to. So I'll be going to I'll be in Bridgewater next weekend, probably
Ah,
under a tent in the pouring rain, but that's okay. That's what makes it good. And then I'm going to be in Wolfville the next weekend, and at the end of the month in Halifax again. So
well, that's quite a busy schedule.
it is, yes. I'm taking this weekend off. I've had to slow down in the past few weeks because I'm not, I'm better, but I'm not all better yet.
Well, I'm wishing you a complete and speedy recovery. I want to mention it was great to go into Rivendell used bookstore in Barrie and see your books there and AM's. That was awesome. Um,
Whose books did
so
you say?
Rivendell used bookstore in Barrie. So I saw it in them in there. So I'm not sure if how they got there, but it was great to see them there. I remind myself next time I go back to take a picture of them.
Whose books were this?
A Rivendell used bookstore in Barrie. Uh,
But whose books were there? Mine?
Yours and AM's, yeah, both of yours were there.
Oh, I wonder how
Yeah.
that came to be. I know a couple of people in the Barrie region. I thought maybe they just didn't like the books and they donated them.
Well,
No.
or maybe they stopped them for whatever. Like I've been told sometimes. I remember one of my friends who's an independent author as well. She lives in Ottawa. She's like, I saw your books in Chapter in Ottawa. And typically, they're only there regionally, like regionally in terms of like this area where you'd see them stock. But it's she's like, oh wow, that's awesome. You know what I mean? So you just never know where your books are going to show up, where they're out in the wild.
I
And
do have a friend in the Windsor area that was going to actually pitch The Ice Widow.
I mean,
No,
Barrie's a long
she was
way
going
from
to pitch
Windsor, though.
Canoer of Shorelines, and at some point, there was one lady in Truro one day that I had AM's books and my books, and she said, "I love dystopian. I'm going to take all three of these." And
Well, that's awesome. That is
so
absolutely awesome.
like you wanted these moments like that, but oftentimes people will then pass them on after they've read them. One lady told me when she bought the book that when she finishes it, she will write a note on the back, on the blank pages, and sign her name, and then pass it on. And then they do that, write a comment and sign their name, and it keeps going and going and going through the family and through the connections. And she said the book, as they finish it, they pass it on, and everybody keeps commenting. And it's kind of an exciting thing to think of, that there will be your book completely marked up with comments and people's names that have read it. Maybe it'll be 5 names, but maybe it'll be more. But they seem to do this in their family, and I think it's a lovely tradition because we won't be bestsellers, but we will be best promoters, and that's even better.
I agree. And like I said, you never know where your books are going to show up in the wild,
They,
especially in this age of digital, marketing and used
Maria Haka
bookstores and.
posted a little video of a Canoer of Shorelines on a beach in Athens with some boats in the background.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and this lady, they're from Greece. I see them they run a bakery at the Halifax market, and I always get my breakfast there. Once a month, here comes Anne, get the breakfast done out. And but she was asking about the books, and they had just come back from Greece visiting family, and I showed them that video, and they were so excited, because they recognize, the Maria's name, and the fact that it was stamped as being in Athens or outside Athens. Like they were, and you never know, like the connections are just they're improbable, but you never know. They're just the way they are.
Yeah, and that is, amazing. So, well, we'll be signing here for shortly. Again, thank you so much for our wonderful guest, Anne Smith-Nochasak. I'm Peel Stewart, author of the John King Saga. My books, www.peelstewart.com is the website. Normally on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, Instagram and Facebook, but the handles are all the same at Peel Stewart Writes. 4 books out in the John King Saga. Book 5, A Pack of Wolves, coming out in the spring of 2025. So Author's Journey will be continuing. And also a shout out to Beth Talbot again and everyone who came out of the chat, Birdie, Alicia from Birdie at Books, and everybody who will watch this later, watch the replay. You are why this kind of content is important, and you make it happen. So thank you for dropping by, comments, and for all those who are going to watch this later about a wonderful author such as Anne. So, but once again, thank you so much, Anne, for joining me. Everybody, wherever you are, afternoon, day, evening, night, have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon. All right, take care.
I'm going to be catching your interview on Alliance Pride. I missed that. Yes. Friday was quite a day, and it ran on, but probably tomorrow afternoon I'm going to take a relaxing hour or so and just listen in.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, on Alicia's channel, Alicia Brilliant Book. So check that out if you've read the book and you're good with spoilers. If you read Alliance Pride, had a wonderful discussion on Alicia from Brilliant Books with Jen, and the wonderful Epic Tales, another great booktuber, and myself chatting about Alliance Pride. So check that out if you are interested. All right, everyone, have a wonderful night. And